Hello. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's focus session on the profile menu. Before we get started, just a couple of things to get you oriented, although I think most of you have attended these webinars before. But for those who don't know, you can find the chat on the left side of your screen. And if you don't see it there, then at the bottom of the screen, you should see a row of buttons, and one of them looks like a text message icon. If you click on that, it will pull up the chat. If I could get one or two people in the chat to confirm that you are seeing and hearing this webinar, we'll go ahead and dive on in. Hey, great. Thank you. Awesome. Thanks, everyone. All right. So my name is Adrielle. I'm with the onboarding team here at OwnerRez, and today's focus session, as I mentioned, is on the profile menu. We are going to go over your profile settings, preferences, notifications, safeguards, and how to change your password in your OwnerRez account. So in case you don't know what I'm talking about when I say profile menu, that is this green dot in the upper right corner of your account. It should have your initials or the initials of the person whose name is on the account. You can click on that, and then you will see these different menu items here. So we're going to start by talking about the profile menu. This is where you can set the email address for your OwnerRez account. This is the email address that you use to log into OwnerRez. It is not necessarily the same as the email address that is shown to your guests. So the email address that would be shown to your guests is found under settings and under branding and legal, and then theming. So the email that you use to log into OwnerRez may or may not be the same as the email here. Back to the profile menu, email, and then your first and last name should go here. And then if you participate in the OwnerRez forums, you can customize the name that will display when you post in the OwnerRez user forums. And this is also the page where you can connect your Google account. So if you want to use the Google single sign-on to log into OwnerRez, this is where you would set that up and then click Save. The next menu item is Preferences. So let's take a look at that. On the Preferences menu, this is where you can customize a lot of the high-level settings that affect how things appear in your OwnerRez account. So the localization settings, this is where you can set your culture. Typically, this is going to be whatever country you live in. For me, that's the United States. And then you can choose how you want the dates to appear in your OwnerRez account. So this is the culture default here. And I prefer to just have the numbers, so I set it like that. And then you can choose your long date format, so full day, full month, date, and then year. That's the culture default, but there are some other settings available. And then the short date format, again, there's the default, but you can also change this. If you want the date first and then the month, that's one of the options. And then you can choose what the first day of the week on your calendars should show as. So Sunday is the default in the United States. I personally prefer to have my calendar week start on Monday. You can customize that there. There's 3 different options: Sunday, Monday, or Saturday. And then we come to the bookings preferences. So you can choose the default booking view. Whatever you have selected here is the booking view that you will see when you log into your OwnerRez account. And it's also what you'll see on this bookings page. So my default is the ribbon view, but there are other options. There's the month view, which looks like this. And if you have multiple properties in your account, you may need to select which properties should show on this month view. You are limited because there's only so much space on each day. So if you have a ton of properties, you're not going to be able to see all of them on this page. I think you can select 4 to view at the same time to see all those bookings on here. Then there's the year view. With this view, you'll see 1 property at a time. You can select here which property you want to see, and it shows you the entire calendar year. And then you can view current. So the current view is going to show you all of the arrivals, departures, or stays for yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So since today is the 23rd, it's showing me the 22nd through the 24th, all of the different events happening at the properties. And then the last view is the list view. This is just going to give you a list of your bookings, and by default, it sorts by arrival. So going back to the preferences page, this is where you can choose which view you want to have as your default. I personally like to have the ribbon view as my default. And then I have it set to view is sticky. So what this means is that if I am on my bookings view, so again, by default, it's going to show me the ribbon view. But let's say that I'm working in my account and I switch over to the list view. Having this set to sticky means that if I navigate away from this page, let's say I go and work on something in settings, and then I go back to bookings, it's going to keep me on that list view that I was on before. If I make this not sticky, then it will always default me back to the ribbon view when I click on this bookings calendar. The next thing we can look at is how we want the list view sorted. So we're on the list view right now. As I mentioned, by default, it sorts by arrival. There are other options for how you want it sorted by default. You can sort by date booked, or by property and then by arrival date, or by property and then by date booked. So you can always customize that. And then if your business uses cleaning dates in OwnerRez, you can choose to show the cleaning date on that list view. And if we look at it right now, we just have the arrival departure columns. Selecting that cleaning date is going to add a cleaning date column here. So I'll turn that on. And now it will look like this. So now I have a cleaning column here as well. So if that's something that's useful for you, you can turn that feature on. And going back to our preferences view, another thing you can do is choose how you want the ribbon view to appear. So right now, when we look at the ribbon view, we go to ribbon, we can see that each property has a color assigned to it, and that is the background color on the booking events. If you're not sure where that color generates from, you can go into properties, click on a property, and it's here on the general info page, calendar color, and you can change that by clicking the change button up at the top and then selecting a different calendar color for that property. So that's where that is coming from. On the preferences page, we can choose show property background color on the bookings ribbon background. And what that's going to do is instead of having all of the backgrounds here as gray, it's going to apply the property color. So this is what that looks like. So now we have the property color behind each property name as well as behind the booking events. The next thing that we can change on our preferences is the block off color. So if we look at the bookings list view, or sorry, bookings ribbon view right now, we can see that we have these blocks on the calendar and they are set to have a gray background that is candy striped. I'm going to change this to property color and still keep it as candy striped. And now those blocks are going to look like this. So we have the property color behind them. And especially with the darker colors, these blocks are not as obvious anymore because they're not in gray. The other thing you can do with the preferences is you can set your blocks to be a solid color. And you can set this on the ribbon view as well as on the month view. So we're going to make that solid and then take a look. And you can see now the blocks really do blend in with the other bookings. So you might like that, or you may want the blocks to stand out a little bit more on your calendar, in which case you would probably want to keep it on the gray solid or gray candy striped settings. And then we'll click save to apply that. So now our blocks are a little bit easier to see at a glance on our calendar. Couple more areas on the preferences menu. That covers all of the calendar items. So the next item is with property management. So that is if you have our PM feature turned on. If you don't use PM, then you won't see this on your preferences page. But you can choose whether you want the properties grouped by owner in the property filters and lists. So what that means is, let's go to settings so we can show an example of this. There's many areas of your account where you might see this, but one of those areas is when you're creating a surcharge. And we want that surcharge to apply only to certain properties. Right now, with the way I have this set, where I do not have don't group by owner selected, which means the property list is going to group the properties by owner. So it's going to look like this when I click into the properties. First, I have all my properties that don't have any owners assigned. And then I have all my properties that do have owners assigned to them, grouped by the owner of that property. If I change my preference so that the properties are not grouped by owner, I'm going to save that so that setting applies. And now I'll refresh this page, add my condition for the property. Now all of the properties are just listed in my internal sort order, and there's no grouping by owner. You can see how those owners got taken out of that list. So again, it's on the preferences page because it is very much a personal preference, but that option is available to you. The next thing on this page is your messaging preferences. So this is really going to apply more so if you're a co-host and you have multiple different Airbnb accounts connected to OwnerRez, but you can choose in this dropdown how you would want the messages that OwnerRez sends on your behalf via Airbnb, if you want those sent by which host, so co-host, primary host, so on and so forth. And I don't have multiple Airbnb accounts connected to this, so this dropdown is not active for me. But if you do have multiple Airbnb accounts connected to OwnerRez, this dropdown will be active and you can make a selection there. The last setting on the preferences page has to do with the tools menu and whether or not you want any of these featured apps to show in the tools menu. So by default, when you click on the wrench to access the tools menu here, if you scroll down, you'll see these featured partner integrations. And if you don't want those to show in that menu, you can simply toggle these off, click save. And now when you click on the tools, you'll no longer see those items there. All right, so the next item in the profile menu that we're going to talk about is notifications. So this is where you can control all the different things that OwnerRez will send you notifications about. And you may only see the email column here, depending on what devices you have set up with OwnerRez. So you can choose, you can toggle these on and off as you please based on the event description over here on the left. If you want to set up push notifications, you can do that on any mobile device, so a tablet or a cell phone. And to do that, you want to install OwnerRez as an app on that device. So we're going to go to our support center. I'm going to click on the help in the upper right corner, and I'm going to click support center. That's going to open our help center in a separate tab. And I'm going to search here for mobile app. The OwnerRez app is called a progressive web app. So it's not a traditional app in the sense that you won't find it in your Apple Play Store or your Android App Store, but you can have it behave as an app on your phone. You just want to follow the steps in this article right here, mobile phones and tablets. And we have videos that will walk you through the steps of installing the OwnerRez app on an Android phone or device or an iOS phone or device. So follow those steps. And then once you've done that, you can look up our help article on push notifications. Just do a search for that. It'll be this result right here. And this will walk you through the steps of subscribing your mobile device to push notifications. And you can even subscribe a desktop or laptop to push notifications. If we go to the devices tab here, you will see all of the subscribed devices. So this is actually my laptop that I have subscribed to push notifications. So this is where you'll see your subscribed devices. And then over here on the subscriptions tab of this page is where you will see the options of what you want to receive push notifications for. So in my own personal OwnerRez account that I use for my business, I only have certain events that I receive push notifications for. So I have a lot of these toggled off because as some of them, the non-urgent things, I'm happy to just get notified via email. And then I just have my push notifications turned on for things that I consider urgent. And again, that's going to be a personal preference. What one person considers urgent may not be what someone else considers urgent. So you can go through here and customize what you're receiving notifications for on your mobile devices or your push notification subscribed devices. The next item here in the profile menu that we're going to look at is the safeguards. And so let's see, here we go. So this is where you're going to have some security settings in place for your OwnerRez account. So you can choose whether or not you want your session to time out. If it's idle, you would just toggle that on. I'm going to keep that toggled off. And then you can also set up two-factor authentication. So either via the Authenticator app or email. And then this setting right here is really important. If you have a lost device, you want to make sure that you come here and log out everywhere. So if you ever lose your device or you log in on a public computer and forget to log out, you can click this button, log out everywhere. And when you have OwnerRez on your phone, you can access this from your phone as well. The next thing that we want to look at on the profile menu is the change password. So this one's very straightforward. It does exactly what you would expect it to. It asks you for your current password, and then you set a new password. You confirm your new password, and you hit save. And now the password that you use to log into OwnerRez has been changed. So that is everything for today. We went over the profile settings, preferences, notifications, safeguards, and how to change your password. We'll go ahead and open it up for Q&A now. I'm going to check to see if we received any questions. If you have a question, you can either post that in the chat or in the Q&A section. It looks like we have one question from Rhonda. Do we get Breeze for free? I believe we have, I'm not sure on that. You would want to look at that article. You can click here in the tools menu and scroll down. Oh, I disabled it. Hang on. Let me re-enable that again. That was under preferences. Let's show this again. Okay, save that. If we click on the wrench and scroll down to Breezeway, it'll take you to the information on our integration with OwnerRez. And so it looks like there is a certain level of Breezeway services that OwnerRez users can get for free, but you'll want to review this page to get all of the details on that. How to delete the two-factor authentication. You would go to your profile, go to safeguards, and then I think you're required to have at least one because it is an important security standard. So I don't think you can fully disable it. But you can always email our help desk for more information on that. But it is definitely strongly recommended that you have that in place because that's really, you have a lot of information in your OwnerRez account that you want to keep enabled or secure. Thank you, Sherry. Yeah, I don't think you can disable it. Rhonda asks, I'm offering a 10% discount to friends on Airbnb and I have it set up in OwnerRez, but it's not working on Airbnb. Okay. That is beyond the scope of today's webinar, but please email our support team, help@ownerrez.com, to ask about that. They can take a look in your account and see if maybe something is not configured quite right. Let's go ahead and go over the support options that OwnerRez has to offer. So as I just mentioned, we have our help desk team. You can reach them at help@ownerrez.com. We also have our support center, ownerrez.com/support, and you can find videos there as well, ownerrez.com/support/videos. We also have our user forums that I mentioned briefly during today's presentation. You can find those at ownerrez.com/forums. That's where you can interact with other OwnerRez users. You can also post feature requests there, And in the feature request form, you can see requests that other users have posted, and you can vote for requests that you'd also like to see. We also have our blog, ownerrez.com/blog. That's where you can stay up to date on all of the latest OwnerRez news, including, if you missed it, our Resi AI. It just went into public beta, so you can find that there. And then we also have our webinars page, ownerrez.com/webinars. I'm going to show you that page. This is where you can find all of the upcoming webinars and register for those. We have a Q&A session coming up on August 8th. We also have another focus session in August and our weekly demos, of course. One of the really useful things on this page is that you can find all of our past webinars here. So if you missed the announcement about Resi AI, you can go back and watch this webinar from last week on Resi. And then we also have a bunch of webinars with our integration partners. And then all of the past focus sessions can be found on this page as well. So definitely take advantage of this resource. Sue, go ahead and email our support team on that. If you could send them a screenshot of the error, they may be able to help you troubleshoot that. All right, so that brings us to the end of today's webinar. Thank you all so much for joining us. And I hope to see you next month when we talk about some account setup tips and tricks. Have a great one. Bye-bye.